This is Dear Strategy, episode 143. Welcome to another episode of Dear Strategy, where we answer all of your questions about product, business, and personal strategy. I'm your host, Bob Caparelli. This is episode 143, being recorded in April of 2024. Welcome back, strategy creators, to another great episode. On this episode, we are going to continue with enhancing something that we brought up 2 episodes ago. So back in episode 141, I gave you 2 golden rules that small businesses should follow, kind of 2 rules that lead to small business success, or even better said, if you don't follow these 2 rules, you probably won't succeed as a small business. The first rule was diligently following up. And then the second one was never treat your customers like they're a burden to you. So I kind of gave an introduction to that in episode 141 and then promised that I would enhance those comments and kind of give you a little bit more information on each one of those in the next 2 episodes. So in the last episode, we told you about diligently following up, gave you some tips on how you might be able to do that as a business owner. And then this one, we're going to talk about the second golden rule, which is never treat your customers like a burden. Now, this is kind of a play on something that we've heard many, many times for many, many years from many, many businesses, that the customer is always right. And that always bothered me. I get the sentiment, right, is that you should never treat your customers like they're wrong. I get it. And in that way, it kind of coincides with my golden rule here. But by saying that the customer is always right, you're coming out of the gate with a falsehood. I mean, it's just not true. Customers are not always right. Many times customers don't have it right. They don't have all their information. And you as a company need to understand that if a customer isn't right, your job is going to be to educate them in a positive way. So if you go into things thinking that the customer is always right, then you're kind of telling yourself that you should be lying to a customer, which never really ends well. Because when you lie to your customers, first of all, they'll pick up on it eventually, especially if they weren't right to begin with. But second of all, you're going to resent that, right? And you're going to start resenting your customers, which is why I think so many businesses treat their customers poorly, because they have been trained that the customer's always right when they're not. And now they have less tolerance for customers, especially when they're not right and you can't say anything. There's nothing worse than having a feeling that you can't express. This is just in personal life anywhere, right? Nothing worse than that. Nothing that creates more anger, more angst, more problems. And that translates right into business. So with all that said, my version of that rule is never treat your customers like they're a burden. Now, what do I mean by that? We've all been in a situation where we go to buy something from a store or whatever, provide a service from somebody, whatever it is. We go to purchase something and we get treated poorly. But it's not just getting treated rudely. It's really getting treated like we're a problem, right? So sometimes, people just don't want to do their jobs. They're having a bad day, whatever it is. They don't want to deal with customers. This could be employees. It could even be owners. It could be anybody, right? And you go in as a customer and you get the feeling that that person is not happy to serve you in whatever way they're supposed to be serving you. So that's one way that this can happen. But another way that this can happen is when you have a legitimate complaint with a company. And this happens a lot, right? Companies don't always deliver on their promises. They don't always deliver what they said that they were going to deliver. And what they end up doing in many cases is, instead of correcting the situation or, doing something to make it right, what they do instead is they treat you like you're the problem. Like somehow you're asking for something unreasonable, which really translates into, I don't want to fix your problem, or I don't know how to fix your problem. Either of those things can happen, but the customer ends up feeling like they are trouble, right? They are a problem customer. And when the customer is right, being treated that way is a recipe for disaster for a company, right? When the customer is wrong, well, the customer doesn't know that they're wrong. So if they're treated that way by the company, then it's kind of the same reaction, right? They don't want to do business with that company anymore. They're going to go somewhere else. But in this case, they're never going to know that they were wrong. So, okay, without getting too convoluted, what I want to do is kind of provide you with some tips, some pointers, if you are a business owner or conducting business in any way. How do you ensure that you are not treating your customers like a burden? So here's a couple things that you can think about. So first thing is, and I'm going to kind of do this based on scenarios that I think are happening, right? So scenario one is a company who is taking on customers that they should never have taken on, right? So every company has target customers, people who they know their products and services are ideally suited for. And when you are selling your products and services to customers that are not the ideal customers for you, that creates a mismatch. And that creates some level of resentment, right? The customer's expectations are different than what you can deliver. And so it's kind of a problem right from the start. And if you can't deliver on the expectation because the customer has a different expectation than what you do, then they're going to be upset. You have no way of fixing it. And that's going to create a situation where you are likely to treat that customer like they're a problem to you, because in that scenario, they are, right? So my first scenario, the solution to that, if you're a company, is be selective about which customers you want to do business with. Now, if you're in a retail type of an environment, that's not so easy to do. It can be done, by the way, but you can't do it directly. When somebody comes in to buy something, you say, well, no, I can't sell it to you. I'm pretty sure illegal. You can't do that. But what you can do is you can locate your business in a place where most of your ideal customers are hanging out. You can target your ideal customers through the right advertising, promotion, and so forth. So you're attracting the ideal customers into your establishment that you want. You can price your products and services in such a way that it attracts the target customers that you want. That means either pricing it high enough to go after certain segments or low enough to go after other segments, right? So make sure, in short, that you're positioned to attract the vast majority of your customers to be the ideal customers for your business. Now, if you're in a service business, you do have some flexibility to be a little more selective and decide which customers you want to take on and which ones you don't. So we talked about this a little bit in our last episode. Don't feel like you have to quote every piece of business. Don't feel like you have to quote things that you are not capable of delivering, or quote to people who you can't meet their expectations, right? So all of this to say, try to be selective. Now, in the strategy process, we talk a lot about establishing who your target customers are, which segments you want to go after. And the idea here then is, if you've done that work, just make sure that you are executing to it, right? And don't take on every piece of business because you need money that day or you want to be opportunistic. Okay, so that's kind of one way that you could do this, is make sure you have the right customers that match your business. Okay, so the second thing that you could do, and this is kind of the second scenario two, is when a customer comes in, has expectations, and you as a company are not performing the way you should. So maybe you've got the right customer matched to your business, but you have problems internally. Maybe you have problems with delivery. Maybe you have problems with service. Maybe you have problems with, employee turnover. Whatever it is, you as a business are having some issues. And because of that, customers are upset. And when customers are upset, they do become a problem to you, right? Because they have something to say and you really can't make it better. And so a lot of times businesses' reactions are to make the customer feel like they're a problem. I told you the story probably a couple of episodes ago that I was just redoing bathrooms and so forth. And one of the companies that I was working with to get some of my supply and so forth was falling down on the job, just plain and simple, could not deliver to what I needed. They promised certain delivery dates, didn't meet them, promised certain quality, didn't meet them. They just couldn't deliver to what I wanted. And this company, instead of saying to me, we understand, and we're going to do everything we can to make this better, give us a chance, here's the steps we're going to take, which any of those things would have made me say, okay, I'm going to give you that chance, and I'm probably going to continue doing business with you and be a little more patient. Instead, what they did is they got defensive, right? And this is a very natural human reaction when we are incorrect or wrong or whatever it is, that we get defensive instead. And because we can't solve their problem, we know that we're not doing the right things or whatever it is, we get defensive. And because we get defensive, we are going to treat that customer as if they are wrong, which is just a replacement for us being wrong. It's kind of an easy way out. But it's a really bad way out in the long term, because if that customer feels like they are a burden to you, like it's a problem for you to deal with them, they're not going to want to do business with you anymore. And so what's the solution to that one? The solution to that one is to make sure that you've got everything in order. If you say that you're going to be able to provide a service in a certain way, make sure you have all the tools to be able to do that. And if you don't have all the tools to be able to do that, invest, right? Invest. And that may even require taking on some level of debt, but invest in the value proposition that you said you would deliver. And if you don't want to invest in that, you need to change the value proposition, change your strategy, change the customer base, change any number of different things to match what your true capabilities are. But again, if you think you have certain capabilities and you're not capable of meeting those, you need to revisit your business model, okay? Okay, so the third scenario I think that happens here is when you are a business owner and you as a business owner truly want to meet customers' expectations, but you hired employees who don't, right? They just don't care. And, we could do several episodes on work ethic and hiring employees who actually care about your business and so forth. There's lots of things that I could say about this. It's an easy out for me to say, oh, people are just lazy and employees don't care, or whatever else. No, but there are actually companies that I've seen very good examples of where they are able to motivate their employees. They create a culture, they create an environment where their employees feel like they are a part of the business and they are a part of the business's success, right? That could be being more transparent with employees so that they kind of see what their impact is on the business. It could mean giving them more incentives. So if they bring in more business, do certain things and you'll pay them more. It could mean simply paying them more, but I would tell you that's usually not the answer. That's what employees think they want. Oh, if I got paid more, then, that never satisfies anything. It's not the core problem. The core problem isn't that people aren't getting paid enough. It's that people aren't motivated. They're not inspired. They don't understand your business. They don't understand the impact on your business. And as a result of that, they get demotivated. So again, we could do episodes on this, maybe we'll in the future, on good leadership and what good leadership looks like. The unfortunate thing is most people, I hate to say, are not good leaders. Most people lead from a stance of insecurity. They lead from a stance of protectionism, meaning that they're going to protect their business and, not give information that they should be giving to the people that work with them. They lead from a standpoint of feeling like the only way to get people to do things is to tell them what to do and be a controller and things of that nature. I've made all these mistakes, by the way, so I know I can see them from both sides of the coin. So again, I'm not going to get into all of the things that you could do as a business owner to fix some of those things. We could do that in the future. For now, what I would say is if you're in a situation where you have employees who are not motivated, you need to find ways to motivate them. And again, we've seen examples of this. There's a local supermarket near me. I live in the Connecticut area, and there's a local supermarket called Stu Leonard's. I'm sure I can talk about it because it's in a positive way. You go into that business, they talk about being customer focused, being customer oriented. I've never worked there. I can't speak for every employee of that business, but I can say the customer service experience is almost always excellent. No matter what I'm experiencing, you could see that the employees want to be there. You could see that the employees go out of their way to try and service the customers in a way that customers deserve to be serviced. They go out of their way to make the customers feel special, no matter if the customers are right or wrong or difficult or anything else. I've almost never had a bad customer service experience there, no matter how bad of a mood I might have been in as a customer. And so something is happening there, right? And probably could go and check it out a little bit further and so forth. The owner has written some books and things of that nature. So I think, there's some information there. But at the end of the day, what I could tell you is they've created a culture, they've created an environment where employees want to be a part of that culture, right? It's a very, very well-respected establishment, and the employees kind of follow that. So I think there's some magic there to be talked about. Okay, and then I'll say the last scenario that I can think of is, again, when customers are treated like they are a burden, is when companies truly feel like they are in business to do their customers a favor. And there are certain industries where this is the case, that instead of treating your customers as if they are a valuable part of what you do and that you can't exist without them, instead, they treat their customers like the customers can't exist without the company or the industry. And so there are examples of this. I can think of two right off the bat. It's maybe a little controversial, but I'll give you three just so it's not so controversial. Utility companies, number one, right? Most companies that provide a utility, so I don't just mean electrical utility, I mean any kind of utility that comes into your house, oil, gas, electric, water, cable. These are among the least highly rated companies as far as customer service goes, anecdotally at least, where, if you ask people, and I do this in every workshop I have, like name a company that you don't like doing business with, inevitably a utility of some type comes up. So that's kind of one brand of this. The medical industry, I hate to say, many doctors, maybe many lawyers also fall into this category where they feel like you need them more than they need you. And there are others, right? I don't want to go too deep into ripping on, certain industries, so forth. Education comes to mind as well, right? Where there are some schools, whether they're public, private, whatever, that they feel like, they are there doing you a service and you need them more than they need you, especially if some of those things are being funded by taxpayer dollars, things of that nature. Politicians sometimes fall in this category. So, I could go on and on. Again, without being too specific, you get the idea. When the business, and all those things that I named are businesses to some extent, but when the business feels like they're doing you more of a favor than you're doing for them, then that is a problem. And that's basically called a power trip, right? No matter which way you want to slice it. And it is a culture that is just horrendous because it's ripe for disruption. Even if you are in a service industry or a business that people need and they can't live without, right? Which is where this usually comes in. Eventually, people will find a different way. They will find a different way to survive because they do not want to be treated like they are a problem to you, right? Or that you are more important than they are. And so that's kind of the last one. Now, again, that's pretty industry specific, but if you are in one of those industries that I just named, and again, you can think of more, I'm sure, but any industry that has really, really bad reputation from the standpoint of customer service, like nobody wants to do business with them, usually it's because they feel as a company or an industry that they're more important than their customers, and that is just a terrible thing. So if you think that you fall into that category, even if your whole industry falls into that category, be a disruptor, right? And try to find a way to turn that around. There are examples, by the way, of companies that have done this. Warby Parker comes to mind, right? Warby Parker, you can watch their commercials on television. People went to opticians and said, this is a horrible experience, and think it was because of what I just said. And Warby Parker said, we're going to make this a different experience. And by darn, you go into a Warby Parker location and you feel like you are special, like you are there for them, not the other way around. So there are other examples as well. Again, we don't have a lot of time to go through them, but look out for them, think about them, because I'm sure that you'll find them. So those are my comments. This went a little longer than I wanted to, but it's a really important topic. So I've given you 4 categories. Again, if you think you fall into one of those 4 categories and you have any chance of treating your customers like they're a burden to you, which I would say anecdotally, again, the majority of companies that I work with, not from a consulting standpoint, but from the standpoint of a customer, I would say the majority treat me like I'm a troublemaker or I'm a problem, especially since I'm pretty exact. And I actually ask a lot of companies. I want them to deliver on their promises. I'm not a guy who just like kind of sits back and says, oh, don't worry about it. It's fine. I just want to be a nice person to you. No, you said you were going to provide me a service. I want that service. If I don't get that service, then I'm going to raise a stink. And right away, that's going to make me a problem. But I shouldn't be a problem because I'm just asking for companies to give me what they promised. So again, think back on this. If you fall into one of those 4 categories, see if there are ways that you could turn it around. And I guarantee if you couple this with my last, my first golden rule, I should say, which is diligently following up, you will have a lot of success. So with all of that said, while you're thinking about all this stuff, don't forget to make time for the plan. We'll see you back here on another episode of Dear Strategy. Thanks for joining.